The definition of a public performance is a performance outside of a close group of family and friends, usually for profit. Anytime a performance of that nature occurs, with certain exceptions, there's an exemption for fair use, obviously, in educational situations. A professor is allowed to use a piece of music to illustrate a point if he's teaching in a, I'm not sure if it's a not-for-profit or if a for-profit institution can use the fair use exemption as well. But there are educational exemptions in religious services. We don't license religious services. We don't license Girl Scout camps, and if you want to know why that is, by all means, Google Girl Scouts and ASCAP. That's an interesting story right there by itself. We don't license record stores. We don't license movie theaters. And these exemptions exist because those music users lobbied against us and managed to carve exemptions out of copyright law, which really doesn't have these built into it. Copyright law is pretty clear that any time a public performance outside of a close circle of family and friends, usually for profit, it occurs, ASCAP, BMI, and sesac, as the representatives of their songwriter and publisher members or affiliates, has the right to go out and license those performances, collect money from those users, and then pay it back to the writers whose works were used in those businesses. And it's absolutely correct, as you were saying, the performance could be a radio station, and then once that radio station is broadcast into another business, like a dentist office, then ASCAP would license that public performance in the dentist office. And the reason for that is because we add value to these people's businesses. We've done studies, and some of the most fascinating have had to do with restaurants, where if you're eating dinner in a restaurant and there's no music playing, what's going to happen is you're going to finish your meal and you're going to get up and you're going to leave. You're not going to hang out in a place where there's no music. If there is music playing, you're more likely to stay there, have dessert, have a chat with your friends, order another drink. If you're playing jazz, the patrons expect to pay about 10% more for the same meal. And if you're playing classical music, they expect to pay 15% more for that same meal. So we're putting dollars in the pockets of people who use our music, not to mention the radio stations in particular who play our music and make tens of billions of dollars every year. I think the numbers from the Radio Advertising Bureau for last year were $21.2 billion that radio stations earned. And in truth, really the only product that they have to sell is our music. Aside from that, it's advertising is the only thing that they have on the airwaves. So we generated $21.2 billion in advertising revenue for radio stations, and the sum total of recorded music that was sold in America was around $12 billion. So, I mean, the vast majority of the money that's earned in this country is earned, I would say, through public performance of our music rather than actual physical sales of CDs or any other usage. The only reason that ASCAP exists is because it's impossible for any one songwriter to go to every single music user in America. For one songwriter to go to these users and license this right of public performance, it's just absurd to think that any one of us could go out there and license every single, you know, like you said, dentist office, dance studio, campground, you know, supermarket, airline, theme park, radio station, TV station, not to mention for one of us to go to a monolithic organization like Clear Channel or NBC Universal and demand to be paid is ludicrous. So we had to come together and form these performance right organizations where thousands of us would come together and collectively go out and issue these licenses to the music users. And basically all we do is correct a flaw in the marketplace. The government gives us the right to be paid this public performance royalty. They just don't tell us how in the world it is that we would go about licensing and collecting those royalties and keeping track of the music that's used in the course of these other people's businesses. So we had to solve it for ourselves, and this is the solution that we came up with.